Hello everybody, and welcome to a WoW Classic Plus specs video. My ideas are for sub-specs to attach to the original trees from the classic format of the game. The goal is to try and add different playstyles and themes to classic specs. This is not a balanced nor comprehensive ideas video. They are just vague ideas that I've attached with a little bit of substance. This is my own opinions, so you're more than welcome to have your own, and we obviously encourage that. I did this on a talent builder website, and I will post a link of it in the description. Now with that out of the way, let's cover Mage. So first, actually let's just cover our archetypes actually. So we got 2 specs for each type of mage currently in the game. So we got 2 arcane specs, we got 2 fire specs, and we got 2 frost specs. These are all to be just attached to talent trees, and everything else, basic default balance that everybody has an opinion on, that's not part of this video. Alright, so Lightwell for Priest is a good example. We're not going to deal with that at all. We're just going to look at things to attach to these specs to make them a little bit more diverse or bigger or whatever along those lines. So let's start with the first one, a popular one from Sod, I think, or at least. Healer Mage. I think Healer Mage is actually a very good idea for Classic Plus, and my only issue with it was regeneration, really, and trying to make it into a Disc Priest. I know it's a style, but it's just not one that I imagined. So let's get into it. So the first things we're going to keep are several Sod runes, because some of them are quite good, but we're obviously going to turn them down because Sod, I played a lot of Sod, it was a little overtuned for a classic setting. But I do like our idea of rewind time, so as it's written there, it's just a simple rewind time. Now, because we don't have regeneration, we've attached apply magic or dampen magic to be a tracker, because it seems like Blizzard might need that. I'm not a coder, I don't know. Right, but that's the idea. So we'll just reset them to the value that they were 5 seconds ago on a decent cooldown, and we'll give that to them nice and early because it can just be used for questing and leveling and stuff like that. The other thing I guess I should mention is that when these talents are, like the levels, are kind of loosely when I think you should get them, but they're not 100% accurate. Next thing we'll be looking at is Temporal Anomaly. Again, another Sod one. I think you can give this one nice and early. It's a bit of AoE shielding, and this kind of healer mage is going to focus solely on shields. Right? This is a new one that I've created. It's a Arcane Crystal, so think of it like a totem, but we've added a few fun little interactions. So it's got its cooldown 15 seconds, 2 charges, and it heals targets within 10 yards. The numbers are not too important because that's all balances and stuff, but the idea is that you would place a Arcane Crystal and it would heal your nearby allies, just like a totem. Right? Now we want to go a little bit further and add some maginess to it. So what I've done to try and encourage the DPS style that we've kind of gone for is that if the crystals are in range of enemies, they will extend their duration if you hit the target with those, hit the enemies with those targets in range. If the mage casts Arcane Explosion, the crystal will detonate and will add all the healing that it's stored from all the damage you've been dealing into like a release of AoE explosion. Now you need to do Arcane Explosion to be in range, so it's got kind of that positional requirement that I think could be mildly interesting. Moving on. So the next part we're looking at, again numbers can change, but we're just looking at maybe changing Amplify Magic or Dampen Magic to be a little bit more of a healer kind of arcane sub-spec. We're also going to keep our Advanced Warding from Sod because I had no issues with it. And I think Mana Shield is the way to go. You've noticed that we've added no real healing except for the Arcane Crystal and the Rewind Time. That's intentional because we're just looking for shielding to be the majority of the mage's healing. Now, that being said, these aren't necessarily designed for raid or anything like that, so that you should be able to do some solo content with this stuff. That's the goal we're going for. Now, we obviously are going to need some healing. So moving on from our little Sod Advanced Warding, we've added Mana Shield Improvement, which will add some spell power to your, or healing power to your shields, but it will also convert the mana that's drained from the mage healing to the target. So that's how you'll be doing healing. So it's no intentional healing, it's just mage shields and then have that do the healing afterwards. Extra little talents in here. Why not make the mana gems give health? Don't see a problem with that. And I also thought that we could give a little bit of a utility aura to mages with our allowing our mage armor to apply to people in our party and having it scale with the magic absorption talent from the original game, which I'll go to now. So we can see it here, magic absorption, increase your resistances, and cause all spells you fully resist to give you mana back, right? So as for the aura applying to other players, they would get the resistances, and you would get the mana for the spells they resist. Alright, moving on to our next one, back into Arcane. Melee Mage. I think Melee Mage is most appropriate in Arcane, so that's where I put it. So there are some wand talents for Arcane Mage, as we can see, wand specialization. And so what we're doing is just encouraging that wand style so that people don't have to fully commit to melee, but again, these are little talent points that people can pick up at any point. So if you use wands or melee weapons, you generate mana back. Again, I've written some numbers there. It's not too important. They can be changed. The next one is our Violent Concentration, which allows our Arcane Concentration talent to be triggered from wands and weapon attacks, and we're giving melee attacks a bit of a boost so that you can save a bit of mana when you're doing these auto attacks. There's also an Arcane Power scaling in there that just increases your weapon damage, and enchants, which I'll get into a bit later. So we can see that this is Arcane Concentration. It's just a chance for a free cast and costs 0 mana. Alright. The next thing is our little bit of scaling. So with Volatile Mana Shield, I think if you're a melee, you're probably going to want to use Mana Shield. But we'll have added some damage to it. So now when Mana Shield expires, it will, or is destroyed, it will do the damage that absorbed within the time in a small AoE around the caster. Emphasis on small. We don't want it to go a little out of control. So if you're getting range kited by a hunter or something like that, it's not going to do too much, right? A little bit further, we're going for Weaponized Mana. This is the weapon name I've given it. And essentially what will happen is your melee strikes will drain a bit of your mana, and they will turn into arcane damage on your swings. Any mana that's drained in total, so this includes Mana Shield, will add a buff to you of like stored arcane energy. Any energy that's released in that time will do bonus damage attached to your next spell cast. There might have to be some scaling reduction for AoE spells, but that's the idea. It will also make your next cast 80% faster to cast, encouraging things like arcane missiles, any other spells that they decide to add for arcane mages. We haven't gone to 100% because it should be more, I think it should be weaving. Personally, I like that style. Going a little bit further, we now have weapon enchants and weapon-based procs are more likely to trigger on your weapons, and you have a increased scaling with them. So this is just again a compensation to encourage the mage to use their weapon by leaning into some of that arcane enchanter fantasy, just to increase the damage. So for example, Shadowfang Keep with the Meteor Shard, it has a proc on it that says deal 35 fire damage. That would be increased by 100%. Now it's a pretty low level item that we're talking about, but it's a good example here. A little bit further, as our final talent, we'll get Arcane Blade. It will just do 50% of our weapon damage as arcane, so if you have a two-hander, it will do more damage, etc. It'll also generate mana back. Again, numbers can be argued. And any weapon, this is the big part, any weapons, procs, or enchants will proc when you cast this ability, right? So if that 35 damage is on the Meteor Shard, it will go off when you cast Arcane Blade. And I think that's a nice, gentle approach to the setup. All right, moving on. This is when my ideas start to get a little bit less because just coming up with 2 for each. But we're going to look at our Devastation Mage. So essentially what this is just focusing more around Flame Strike and giving it a bit of extra utility and a little bit of play style. And what you're looking for is kind of like a fire zone control, is what we're looking from this spec. So we've increased the duration of flame strikes, or the area effect on the ground, and critting a target inside with a fire spell causes the first part of flame strike to reapply, right? So if so just the first initial damage will reapply if you crit somebody inside a currently active flame strike area of effect. There's also some there about increasing the damage of your next flame strike. Not sure if it's relevant or not. Okay, add a little bit of positional requirements to reward people who want to get a little bit closer. If a player is inside the Scorched Earth when it expires, your next flame strike, blast wave, or dragon's breath will be 50% faster and cost 50% less mana. So that doesn't apply to the two instants like blast wave and dragon's breath, but will have some mana reduction. Going a little bit further, we've got 2 of crisp, and so Scorch will do more damage to targets inside a active flame strike and will crit more often. To get a bit more of this kind of like zone controls, a bit of CC inside of Fire Mage, we'll just give in Blast Wave a bit of a cooldown reduction and a bit of a knockback, and that's it. Right, so we can keep them inside our flame strikes is the idea. This is more, again, we're thinking about leveling, questing, and stuff like that. No escape, I think it's just kind of fun because we're gonna lean into Dragon's Breath, which is actually I'll go to Dragon's Breath first. So this is just typical TBC Dragon's Breath. It might not say that, I've just copy pasted it. Just Dragon's Breath. If you're familiar with Mage, you know what this is. So it will release some fire damage out in a cone in front of you. It will disorient the target, and that's it. We've added this little bit that says it also ignites the remaining duration of your flame strike. Again, not sure how you code this, not my job, but it would be cool if we could just put a lot of fire on the ground, have that zone control, and then we can ignite it on our choice with Dragon's Breath. In keeping with that theme of disorientation, we've just given, kind of like the Hunter talent Entrapment, a chance for sitting in the fire to disorient you. It'd probably have an immunity effect attached to it, but really you'd have to test it. And enemies that are not capable of being disoriented will take more damage from flame strikes. That's just a bit of scaling for bosses. Moving on, we're going on to Wildfire Mage. Now this is a kind of mage that focuses on a bit of dot damage. Very loosely, that kind of term, but also refers to a bit of self-damage or risk factor is what we're adding. So with our Wildfire, we're going to, it's the name of the spec, we'll start with that one first. So it's just a simple dot that applies for 6 seconds, and then we'll jump to a nearby enemy within 20 yards. If there is no additional enemy, it will jump to the player, you specifically. So we'll start doing damage to you, which can be, that's the fun part. We've added a bit of control in here to allow you to move where it goes, but it will, so casting Fire Blast will cause the wildfires to jump to the target. Only one can be applied to a target at a time at this point. Think of this like Prayer of Mending for priests, right? It's the same idea, except it will bounce on expiry rather than bounce on something else. There might even be a Warlock one that's closer to this. In doing that, we've added just, I think, a little kind of fun little chaos stuff. When Wildfire expires, a little fire imp will spawn and it will do just a little bit of damage. It will look like an imp, but it's a sprite. Whatever, we're not dipping into the Warlock fantasy too much. We're trying to avoid that if we can. Right, so this just does a little bit of low fire damage to the targets who are afflicted with Wildfire. If the Wildfire is on you, they'll radiate fire damage instead. And that's for players to solve out what's efficient and all that kind of stuff. Alright. Here's the interesting part, or here's more parts. If Wildfire is combined on the target, so this is from the Fire Blast, so you couldn't combine them before, now they can be combined. They will take instant damage equal to the combined damage of the 2 dots, and then only 1 dot will be applied to the target. Right, so in other words, you can't stack them, but now you get a payoff for if they stack on the same target, equal to all of the wildfires that you've got present. So I'm going to go back real quick to this one. you can see that we've got a 6-second duration and a 12-second cooldown. The intention is for it to, you need to stack them and they need to bounce from targets to targets. So again, you'd have to test and see how interesting that would actually be. If the wildfire expires while living bomb or ignite are on the target, apply another wildfire. So this is again just this idea to get more stacks of it running around, right? We've got living bomb in here just because it's classic. It'll also obviously have to be tuned for Classic Plus, where it would probably have a longer cooldown, maybe cost more mana. There would be adjustments need to be made, I'd imagine. Adding a new little spell that I think would be interesting is why not Arcane Missile but for fire, right? So it acts a little bit differently, but it would be the idea. So you'll channel a flamethrower, essentially like a beam, into a target, and every second for 6 seconds. So you do a lot of little bits of damage. Whether this damage can crit, so you can add your ignites and stuff. It wouldn't do a lot of damage because the damage is separate, right? However, it will do more damage for each unique fire debuff from your target, so not other people's debuffs, just yours. Will do more damage, or make flamethrower do more damage, right? That's the idea on this one. Go a little bit further, we've got radiating heat, and this is kind of that burning yourself, uncontrollable fire theme. Is essentially when you deal direct fire damage, you will gain a dot. That dot will hurt you. If you get over the max cap, which would be 16, again, numbers can change, you'll take maximum health damage, and it'll hurt a lot. That's the idea. The dot is still ticking, by the way, and any wildfires might also be ticking on you, right? So that's the idea of this thing. However, if you get above half the stacks, your dots will now deal their damage twice as fast, right? So things will bounce quicker. It's a payoff for dot classes for them to tick faster. You could add crits, you could add other things. Again, we're not trying to get out of control. This is just Classic Plus. This is what we're looking for, or what I think would be interesting. Now, to keep yourself alive, I've added a chance to proc for Flame Ward to be automatically cast on yourself when you're casting some related spells. And then, again, this can be taken out, can be left in, depends on how it feels. Damage you absorb is radiated out to targets within 10 yards. Right, we could reduce it to 5 if we wanted to be a bit more restrictive. So that's our fire trees. Now again to the bottom of the barrel for me. I didn't have a lot of inspiration for how to play Ice Mage or Frost Mage differently, but I still have a little go at it, right? So in Shards Mage, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna give like a big Ice Lance. Ice Spear would be the biggest part of this. And what we're doing is we're adding these little frosty wisps. We're using wisps as the word, but essentially it would just be a charge that you would keep. Keeping these charges allows you to cast spells a little bit faster, and you can have 3 of them at a time. You can use those 3 at a time to cast an Ice Spear. You can also use Ice Spear during Icy Veins, which I believe is in the town. Oh, it's not. It's a TBC thing. Regardless, I think Icy Veins is a pretty on-theme ability. So there you go. Icy Veins is now part of Frost Mage. Adding a little new spell here, little twin spikes. So again, you're just firing 2 ice shards, right? And if the target is chilled, they will treat the target as if it was frozen. Emphasis on low damage, right? This is just a little bit of a tick to add a bit of damage to your repertoire. Adding the 2 instances of frost damage will spawn a wisp, so it's a wisp generator as well. The final thing is ice spikes, which just says when you're dealing frost damage to a frozen target, or when your icy wisps expire, you will deal medium frost damage to the target you are currently hitting. Something like that. Yeah. Moving on to our Thawing Winter Mage. So this one is kind of we're looking at trying to add some Frostfire to the spec, but it's not all that important. I mean, there's some rewards for being Frostfire, but you can still just do this with Frost, and it'd be mostly okay. So just to get it out of the way, our classic little water elemental will be added, just because it's interesting. And now we'll explain the mechanic. So essentially, your chill stacks will now stack up to 100. When they reach 100%, they will make the target immune to future slows, because being slowed that much would be pretty painful in PvP. But we've added some diminishing returns for how big the slow is, reducing the duration of how long the slow is actually on you. Whether this would work or not, again, haven't tested it. But essentially the idea would be when you thaw out the target, so when you reach 100% slow, they become thawed. During this thaw period, they will take increased fire damage from your spells for the rest of the duration. Alright, so now you can hit them with fire spells, is the idea. And you're kind of building up your chill stacks, then applying your fire damage on top. So to add a little bit more, I tried to get some ideas from other creatures inside World of Warcraft, like spells they might cast. Water jet came up a lot, some geysers and other stuff came up. So we're leaning into a bit of a water-ish, but we're still keeping it frost themed. We're not going into shaman territory with water, hopefully. So the idea of this is that when you cast Frostbolt or Firebolt, a watery jet will follow the bolt. If it's following a Frostbolt, it will increase the chill effect so that you can stack up faster. If you're following a Fireball, it will do a low amount of fire damage, and the watery jet damage, or the little bit of fire damage attached, will gain its bonus damage from the Thawing here, which is the 45%. Moving on to our little geyser, this is similar to the ice spikes. Essentially when you thaw the target, you will deal frost damage underneath the target as a kind of like a little dot, and we've added Frostfire so that it will scale from thawing. Final little one, just to add a little bit of, not all talents have to be super synergistic, but we're trying to just add little interactions. So when you cast Blizzard, Water Jet, or Geyser, you have a chance to apply Icy Wind. The Icy Wind will deal a little bit of a dot, and during this time, chill effects will be applied, adding to the quickness of thawing. So those are all our little mage specs that I think you could actually be interested. I've done a lot of leveling in World of Warcraft, and again, we're more focusing on just making that leveling a little bit more interesting, while also adding some potential specs that you can just have a few bonus talent points to help you out with maybe some styles you'd like to play. Yeah, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.